Sauce Gardner heading over to the Indianapolis Colts as they go all in on this season and beyond. As I think a lot of people have been noting, that move does not just say, hey, we like what we have this year. It says we like what we have moving forward, and that includes Daniel Jones as their starting quarterback for Dallas. What does that decision to bring in Quinnen Williams say? That means they're poorly ran, but we already knew that.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
This just goes to show that, you get a very compelling, competitive series between two teams. And listen, I understand very much international with, the team playing in Canada, Toronto, and Shohei Ohtani and Yamamoto and everybody else. But dare I say, I think these ratings would have been super high anyway. It was just great baseball. Next day, people talking about the games, and the biggest win for Major League Baseball in some time.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
I'm not throwing it back. You come and get it. Like, no way. Even I'm not a fan of the team. I'm not, Vladimir Guerrero, home run, hit ball, these things are authenticated. They have holograms on them. You can prove it. Right? So, there'll be some Blue Jay fan give you a couple of $100K for that. You know what I mean? Guaranteed. World Series ball, home run, you're getting a couple of $100K at least. I'm not throwing that back. No way in hell.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Football contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all three Circus Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest, we handicap the games and release our contest picks every week of the season. Featuring Super Contest champions Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and former NFL player Mike Pritchard, all team will have you prepared this season like none other. Check us out every weekend right here on Sport.
Good afternoon. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. Great to be back with you. It's our Wednesday afternoon edition of the show. One day till football is back, of course, the National Football League. Big weekend ahead in college football. We'll preview all of the big games. Also weigh in will Michael DeCourcy on the National Football League, and Dexter Henry talk some NBA with some streaks going on in the NBA right now. 5-game winning streak, 6-game winning streak for some others. In addition, we'll get to the very latest in ratings from the podcast. Tomorrow will be televised. Simon Applebaum makes his weekly appearance with us. That and a whole lot more on this edition of the show. So stay tuned as we dive into everything happening in the world of sports and sports betting as well. And that's where we begin with a big story that is technically not sports betting, but involves a company that a lot of people think that is. This one is called Polymarket. You may have heard of them before in the prediction market business. A partnership has just begun. Prize Picks will integrate Polymarket's event contracts spanning a wide range of sports, entertainment, and cultural moments, giving fans a new dynamic way to engage the world in the Prize Picks app. That is me reading their statement, not my opinion. My opinion is these sports contracts look a lot like sports betting to me, but Polymarket is one of them that's involved, so why not partner up with Prize Picks, who does peer-to-peer sports, daily fantasy as well. That's the big story in the sports, or as we would say, the non-sports betting world, as they would want you to believe today. Antonio Brown, his career since the National Football League has just completely spiraled out of control. We last saw him taking off a jersey in New Jersey and throwing it in the stands, and since then, he seems to be throwing his life away too. He pled not guilty. Jail records in Essex County, New Jersey show that he was transferred Tuesday morning to Florida. He's being charged with attempted murder for an incident that happened back in May, firing 2 shots at a man that he had gotten a fight earlier with. So he is on bond. Antonio Brown's story, unfortunately, is a pretty sad one and continues. All right, now over to the National Football League. Some big news. Jameis Winston is going to start at quarterback for the New York Giants this week, and ESPN is reporting that Marvin Harrison Jr. is out with an appendectomy, going to miss at least a couple of weeks. So that's big news in both reality and fantasy with the Giants and Cardinals. Meanwhile, no change to the Pittsburgh Steelers despite the struggling offense. Aaron Rodgers, tough game this past week, and their loss, of course, everyone saw it, against the Los Angeles Chargers. Mike Tomlin, the head coach, met with the media yesterday and was asked about him having some high throws, not looking his best. Responded in a way that makes you believe he's got no concerns.
With Aaron not having a good day, the high throws, some of those misses, are there any long-term concerns of things that have been recurring with him specifically in that game, or is it just an off night?
I'm not going to, chalk it up to an off night, but there are no long-term concerns.
Mike, what have been the concerns from a third down standpoint offensively here over the last 3 games?
As I mentioned, we haven't done a good enough job of putting others other than DK in position to win and win big, and they haven't won big enough. We got to do a better job there.
Like when you say you're not going to chalk it up to an off night, but no long-term concerns, is that because of Jesse Minter, or is there something else?
I'm just not going to allow your words to be my words. That's all.
How would you describe Aaron?
Sunday night was what it was, but I have no long-term reservations about his ability to play the position and play the position at a high level for us.
All right, and the Rodgers continues in Pittsburgh, talking about him maybe playing for them next year too. Meanwhile, Bill Belichick seems to be staying in college football. At least that's the opinion of most around him. And right now they're playing Wake Forest as North Carolina this week. The Giants' job has opened up, so certainly they're going to be asking questions. And they did in the media, asking if he has interest in leaving UNC and heading to New York.
Yeah, getting ready for Wake Forest. That's all I got this week.
Has anyone asked you, or the players or recruits want to know about your future?
I mean, I've been asked about it from time to time, but yeah, I've been down this road before. I'm focused on Wake Forest. That's it. And that's my commitment to this team. And next week it'll be to our next opponent and so forth. But, I'm here to do the best I can for this team.
All right, we'll see what the future holds for Bill Belichick. We know the immediate future for Travis Hunter, the young rookie who was fantastic in his career at college at Colorado, hasn't translated quite to the National Football League, and now is going to miss the remainder of the season with the injury that he has. He's expected to be back next year. Also, Aaron Glenn back at the podium for the New York Jets. Certainly Garrett Wilson was the topic of discussion yesterday. Their great wide receiver looks like he's going to miss some time. And Aaron Glenn wasn't really interested in responding to questions about Glenn, referring to a reporter from ESPN for that report.
I'm going to pass on talking about injuries. Since Rich, he's not here, has all the answers, so you guys can get all the injuries from Rich. So I go right into this game.
Last one is Garrett a candidate for IR, or is that not something you want to
ask Rich?
I'm asking.
Well, I'm telling you to ask Rich.
He's not here though. AG.
Well, you better call him.
No disrespect to you or Rich, but we want to hear from you.
You guys have been here. You guys have been hearing from me, but now since we're just reporting stuff, that I haven't said, then maybe you should ask him.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see how we do.
Tough scene for Aaron Glenn. Not the best press conferences all year. All right, let's move ahead to the National Basketball Association. Still the best team in the NBA, Oklahoma City Thunder. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 28 points last night. Chet Holmgren had a nice night as well, 126-102. SGA, 28 points and 11 assists. Golden State now 1-6 on the road. So all the good feelings of the early start of the season for Golden State not translating here in the month of November. Let's hear from Mark Daigneault, Draymond Green. Daigneault first, happy with the second half effort of the Thunder.
Yeah, I thought the third quarter exhibited great mental toughness on our part, because when you're up by 19, that's a hard situation to be in if you play the scoreboard, and it takes mental toughness to just stack the next possessions and stay focused on the game plan to that answer. And I thought at halftime we did a good job carrying out what we needed to do offensively and just making the simple plays to find the best shot collectively. And so to be up by 19 and then to win the quarter like we did, I just thought showed really good maturity.
Yeah, we got outplayed for sure. They played much harder.
When that happened, what do you do collectively to get going?
You got to fight your way out of it, Anytime you hit a little rut in this league, it'll never be easy. It'll never be pretty getting out of it. You got to claw your way out. And right now, that's not the identity of this team.
Meanwhile, the Denver Nuggets just keep on winning. 5 straight wins for them yesterday with a 122-108 win over the Kings. Nikola Jokic, 35 points, 15 rebounds, 7 assists. Not quite a triple-double, but he does that every other night, right? David Adelman talked about the success he's having and seemingly battling an injury, at least last season.
Yeah, it reminds me of years back. He had some wrist issues last couple of years, and it just seems like he's really comfortable right now. 16 of 19 is absolutely insane. He did it from all over the floor. So, there's not a lot of words to describe what he's doing right now. And he did it in 32 minutes, which is good for us. We didn't have to play him into the ground because that second unit did a great job to start the fourth quarter, which allowed us to keep our guys fresh until the 4-minute mark. It was a really good team win, and Nikola obviously is playing at a ridiculous level.
Nice start for the Philadelphia 76ers. They beat the Celtics yesterday 102-100. Kelly Oubre with the game winner with less than 10 seconds to go. The Knicks, by the way, also won their 5th straight game. They beat the Grizzlies by a final of 133-120 behind a nice game from Jalen Brunson. It's award season in Major League Baseball, and wouldn't you know, yesterday here on the show, if you watched it, I told Jack McMullen, don't get caught up in the postseason. Probably going to be somebody in the regular season that wins the Manager of the Year, and that's what happened in the AL. A little bit of a surprise, but Cleveland finished strong, and Stephen Vogt did take home the Manager of the Year of the Cleveland Guardians, and Pat Murphy did in the National League. So what does it mean? Back-to-back years, the same managers win Manager of the Year. Has that ever happened before? I don't think so. Nolan Arenado is looking for a different fit. Chaim Bloom is the new GM. I'm sure they'll try and find a new spot for what most people think will be a future Hall of Famer in Arenado, and Tommy Edman's going to have ankle surgery here following the World Series, is expected to miss a few months, but will be back for spring training. All right, coming up next, Michael DeCourcy from Sporting News weighs in on some of the upcoming games, including tomorrow night's game. Get ready, folks. Patriots and Jets. Can't wait.
We now have to figure out if they will be in the playoffs. They're the Super Bowl favorite and have shorter odds to miss the postseason as you and I sit here right now.
Right, but let me ask you this. Do you feel after this 5-4 record, 9 weeks, 10 weeks of the regular season, that their defense is as dominant as it was last year?
But the offense is better.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Fly Pelican, more like grounded Pelican. The Pelicans are 0-6 to start the season. Their main guys aren't their main guys. And it comes to a point where, what do you do if you are Joe Dumars and the leadership of New Orleans?
Pro Basketball Today, only on SportsGrid.
You want to throw $12, $13 million at Kiffin? That's always a possibility. Summerall, they lost the other night to, in that matchup to UTSA. Or do you go back to potentially the mad scientist and Nick Saban, give him, complete control of the athletic department and see if he can turn it around? We'll see. But whatever they go, they're going to need a coach to hit the ground running.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
His daughter, she's on the OF.
Okay.
She's on the OF.
Is that right?
Yeah, she's on the OF.
So he's got
now.
an OnlyFans daughter and a little son
who says he can beat Curry and LeBron.
And he's coaching a team that was down 72 to
Keep
nothing.
that dude away from polite society.
Okay, brother, I'm with you. I didn't know any of that is.
Numerous pops gotta go.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. We're hoping for some good primetime National Football League games this week. I know Michael DeCourcy is hoping for that as well. We had some bad luck with that last week, some duds. And then you look at this one on Thursday night, it's got to be better, right? We're going to get a big upset or something like that. Maybe here, I don't know. Patriots, big favorites this week. They're playing the best football, really of any team in the AFC right now. 12.5-point favorites over the New York Jets, total of 43.5. We know the Jets are playing for the future here. The only thing I could think of, Mike, maybe this is sort of like a trap spot for Tampa Bay coming off that big win, or for the Patriots coming off that big win against Tampa Bay. But Jets did win last week. Some special teams touchdowns led the way there. Maybe if they can get 3 special teams touchdowns in this game, they could win again.
Great point. The Jets have put up a couple of nice scoring performances. I'm not sure I'd say offensive performances. They were a little bit bulky on offense this past Sunday. But some of that, when you put up that many special teams touchdowns, there's not as much opportunity for the offense to do its thing. But over the last 2 weeks, they've scored more than 27 points. The problem is that doesn't usually trend into a Thursday night game. Those Thursday night games are rarely shootouts, and that's what the Jets would need in order to be successful in this game. Relative to the number, if you believe in the Pats, good for you. But again, the Thursday nights, even for a team as proficient as the Patriots have been, is problematic. I'd more shy away. If it was Sunday, I would say that I would be fairly comfortable in the Pats being successful at that level in this game. But I don't have much doubt that they're going to find a way to win it.
Yeah, and Fields has had a hard time passing, and he'll play in the NFL somewhere next season. I don't think it'll be the Jets, but 4th performance of the season with under 60 passing yards. And that hasn't happened since the year I was born, Mike, 1973. So that goes back a really long way. Patriots win total's the highest on the board right now in the NFL. Who had that at the beginning of the year? 12.5. Overwhelming favorites to win the AFC and to be the #1 seed. But as you look even further at this and you take a look at the Patriots' odds to be the #1 seed in the AFC, as you see there, look at this. Plus 210, followed by the Colts at plus 250. And then, Mike, you have the Broncos at 5-1, the Bills at 5-1, and Kansas City at 8-1. Boy, I am tempted to jump in on those bottom 2 teams there. We still have 8 games to play.
Yeah, well, I will tell you, though, Craig, before you do the temptation, give into that temptation, look at the numbers. Numbers usually matter a lot in this endeavor, right? Well, over the past 5 years, the AFC #1 seed has averaged 13.6 victories. Only once went below 13. There was a 12 in there. And right now, the Ravens would have to go 8-0 to get to 12 wins. The Chiefs would have to go 7-1. So hard to see either of them being a 1 seed. I think the belief in those teams is reflected in the odds to win the tournament, to win the AFC. But right now, I love the Patriots' path to the 1 seed. They've got 2 Jets games, one obviously tomorrow, but another on the road later on. They only have 2 other road games in addition to that, at Bengals, at Ravens. They've got a Giants coming up and a home Dolphins game. It doesn't get much easier, so to speak, in the NFL than that. So I really like the Pats' path in order to get to be able to play all their home games in Foxborough, all the playoff games, in Foxborough.
Joe Burrow's back practicing for the Bengals. He can't put up better numbers than Joe Flacco. That's not possible. But this week, he'll give it his best against the Pittsburgh Steelers, a team that certainly isn't known for their defense for the first time in a really long time. Total of 49.5, which is one of the higher totals, Mike, on the board this week in the National Football League. Go figure this. Look, I understand you got to make the Steelers a favorite here. There's going to be some temptation, I'm guessing, for a lot of people based off the performance we just saw to take Cincinnati. But Cincinnati has not had the best time playing, I know, at Heinz Field. And I guess that's factoring into this line here.
Yeah, I think I don't like the over on that at all. I think the under feels really good after what happened last weekend. Expecting the Steelers are expecting to get Isaac Seumalo back. Obviously, there could be a setback, but they're expecting him to get back at left guard, which would allow them to move Spencer Anderson back into the power role, the eligible tight end role that would allow them to go jumbo. And I think after failing in the running game in a couple of games in a row, they're going to be really determined to do that. Plus, they didn't like being in a shootout last season when they scored 45 points. And I think the final was like 45-36 over the Bengals, and it was a fairly comfortable win. When they played them the second time in the final game of the regular season, they handed off on first down on 11 of 12 possessions outside of the late comeback attempt and a 2-minute drill at the end of the first half. So 11 out of 12 were runs, and they weren't successful. They just didn't want to be involved in another shootout with the Bengals. So I see the under in this game.
By the way, Aaron Rodgers sacked 9 times last 3 games. Seems to be slowing down a little bit. Not a surprise, but hopefully Father Time not completely caught up here for him, and he can continue and somehow get in the playoffs, because right now Pittsburgh 5-4, Baltimore 4-5. I would anticipate those are the only 2 teams in the division making the playoffs, and this week a divisional game where, as we know in the past, the Browns I know this sounds crazy, Mike. They've had their way with the Ravens once a year. The Browns tend to beat the Ravens. Is this the week? The Ravens are 8.5-point favorites in Cleveland, total 39.5. And people are like, "Oh, what are you, crazy? It's never gonna happen." Take a look at the past. I mean, don't you remember Nick Chubb running all over the Ravens defense in the past too, when their defense was so good? I don't know. I think Browns may win this game.
You're much bolder than I am, because in the past, Dylan Gabriel was either playing quarterback at Oklahoma or UCF or Oregon or somewhere, not in Cleveland, and that's been a problem since the Browns went with him, shipped away Joe Flacco. They've been much less competitive at that end of the field. They've refused to go to Shedeur Sanders. I'm not sure what they're seeing in Gabriel that they believe that that's the way to the path to victory. Their special teams are now breaking down, as you mentioned before with the Jets game. The defense has been consistently stout, but I'm not sure if that's enough in this game for them to win.
All right, Mike, when they do, you'll think of me.
I'll remember.
This Sunday, you'll think of me. Have a good weekend, Mike. Thanks again for coming on. Appreciate it.
Too.
I'm always up for a big, unpredictable upset in the NFL. How about in college football? We'll preview some games next.
We now have to figure out if they will be in the playoffs. They're the Super Bowl favorite and have shorter odds to miss the postseason as you and I sit here right now.
Right, but let me ask you this. Do you feel after this 5-4 record, 9 weeks, 10 weeks of the regular season, that their defense is as dominant as it was last year?
But the offense is better.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Fly Pelican, more like grounded Pelican. The Pelicans are 0-6 to start the season. Their main guys aren't their main guys. And it comes to a point where, what do you do if you are Joe Dumars and the leadership of New Orleans?
Pro Basketball Today, only on SportsGrid.
You want to throw $12, $13 million at Kiffin? That's always a possibility. Summerall, they lost the other night to, in that matchup to UTSA. Or do you go back to potentially the mad scientist and Nick Saban, give him, complete control of the athletic department and see if he can turn it around? We'll see. But whatever they go, they're going to need a coach to hit the ground running.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
His daughter, she's on the OF.
Okay.
She's on the OF now.
Is that right?
Yeah, she's on the OF now.
So he's got an OnlyFans daughter and a little son
who says he can beat Curry and LeBron.
And he's coaching a team that was down 72 to nothing.
Keep that dude away from polite society.
Okay, brother, I'm with you. I didn't know any of that is.
Numerous pops gotta go.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. We preview some more matchups in college football. If you missed the show yesterday, where were you? All right, we won't hold it against you, but we are now going to play the other side of the matchups. We're going to preview Notre Dame Pitt and hear from head coach Pat Narduzzi of the Panthers. Also, of course, we have Alabama at home taking on Oklahoma, so we'll hear from Brent Venables of the Sooners, and also Texas takes on Georgia in a very big SEC matchup. We will check in with Steve Sarkisian. Time now for the SportsGrid Sound Off. all right, this is the game of the year for the Pitt Panthers, right? Like, if they want to somehow stay alive in the college football chase, they probably have to win this game. Most feel they have no shot whatsoever, and maybe it's more important to Notre Dame. But let's be honest, if Pitt wins and Notre Dame loses, 23 beats 9, maybe they move into the top 18. We certainly will see. Good news for Pitt, by the way, coming off a bye, so there certainly is a chance that they are well rested and well equipped to take on a Notre Dame team who seems to be just running on everyone. But Narduzzi talks about the head coach Marcus Freeman, how much respect that he has for him, and certainly knows the challenge that is ahead on Saturday.
And then we're on to Notre Dame. Again, heavy game planning this week. Just a tiny bit last week. We were worried about Pitt last week, and focus on Notre Dame kind of in a normal game week schedule. So again, Marcus Freeman, heck of a football player. Obviously a former linebacker, was a great player at Ohio State, and obviously he's a tremendous coach. He's a competitor in all respects. You watch him on game day, he's into it. I mean, he's not just a sit back. He's very active. I can imagine he's active, just being a defensive guy in all their meetings, offensively, defensively, and special teams, because they're aggressive in all three phases. They got an incredible team. I've said this before. We've faced some really good teams and some better than others, but this is by far the most athletic, the best team across the board at all phases, every position that we'll face. It's America's team. It's the All-American team, period. They got the best players from all of America. And, our guys will have their work cut out for them. It will not be easy at noon on Saturday. They got, players everywhere.
Talk about a challenge. Oklahoma's got one this week. They go to Tuscaloosa to take on the Crimson Tide. Oklahoma ranked 11th in the country, and Alabama, of course, one of those teams that are looking for a bye in the first round of the college football playoff. They and Georgia. We'll get to the Bulldogs here in a second. First, let's hear from Brent Venables as the Sooners are ready for a very big game in which, if they win, they put themselves in a position potentially to play for the SEC championship.
They got a really good roster. They're playing really well on both sides of the ball. Their defense leads the SEC in turnovers caused and turnover margin. And offensively, they've been just incredibly efficient. The quarterback's only thrown one interception. This is his fourth year, really experienced, incredibly savvy, very accurate, just under 70% completion percentage. He's got a ton of touchdown to interception ratio. I think he's got something like 17 touchdowns, and just been really fantastic. The skills as good as we'll see all year. Got a really good offensive line, incredibly physical, and then again defensively, they're really aggressive, super well coached in all three phases. Going to be a great challenge, but something I know our guys are looking forward to.
And finally, two teams inside the top 10 in the SEC squaring off. Texas will travel to Georgia. Here's Steve Sarkisian on going to Athens and trying to dethrone the Bulldogs.
Obviously, this week is a heck of a challenge, going to play at Georgia and the respect that we have for that program, the job that they've done, not only this season, but over the years, and what Coach Smart has done. I think they've been to 4 consecutive SEC championship games. He's got a couple national titles. They're a very tough team to play at home. They're 51-2 in their last 53 games at home. And this year in particular, I think that one thing that has stood out is them finding a way to make great adjustments and play in the second half of games and continuing to fight. Even in their one loss against Alabama, I thought they played a tremendous second half and gave themselves an opportunity to win that ball game. So it's going to take 60 minutes, and it's going to take all three phases. This can't be a one-dimensional game for us. We're going to need all three phases to play well. They've got a very balanced offensive attack. I think Gunnar Stockton has done a fantastic job of running that offense and creating explosive plays with his arms, with his legs. They're running the football effectively. Defensively, you're seeing them grow up week in and week out. Very physical front. There's a lot of new faces, a lot of new names, but they all look very similar. So they've got a very talented football team. It's going to be a great challenge, and we're looking forward to it.
Coming up next, Sam McQuillan joins us from Legal Sports Report. Don't go away.
Detroit's going to be a top 6 team in the East. And they're going to be extremely dangerous. And it may be fun to watching that Central Division between Detroit and Cleveland. Kind of makes you think back to the old early 2000s with LeBron and obviously the Chauncey Billups-led Detroit team. But Detroit basketball's back.
Pro Basketball Today, only on SportsGrid.
His daughter, she's on the OF.
Okay.
She's on the OF
Oh, is
now.
that right?
Yeah, she's on the OF
So he's got
now.
an OnlyFans daughter and a little son
who says he can beat Curry and LeBron.
And he's coaching a team that was down 72 to
Keep
nothing.
that dude away from polite society.
Okay, by the way, I'm with you. I didn't know any of that is
Numerous pops gotta go.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
I can just cash out and say, see you later, bye-bye, and sell that contract. So there is a big difference. I've already said I will never, ever, ever again make a future bet with a sports book where the money gets tied up and I have to wait till the outcome of the event. Don't have to do that. All future bets for me are going to Kalshi.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
And the major thing you're going to say about Tom Izzo for the jump is, Tom Izzo don't duck anybody. You want to hear who they have to play preseason? Kentucky, Duke, UNC, and Arkansas. This is not the Jimmy Boeheim Don't Leave New York Carrier Dome Classic. This guy plays people.
College Basketball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid as the Cleveland Guardians, of course, in the middle of a scandal surrounding two of their players. Ortiz in Class A. Ortiz this morning headed to court for his plea. Sam McQuillan joins us here. And, certainly, Sam, this is a story that we talked about a little bit. Can't really expect anything like this to happen in sports, especially with the amount of money that these players are making to risk their lives, their families, and their salaries and their freedom over a couple of pitches in Major League Baseball. Kind of a sad story for me to see this happen, but Major League Baseball definitely stepping in and right away doing something, Sam, that we've talked about many times. People talk about not eliminating bets or eliminating bets. Max bets on all this stuff across the board is the easiest way to let people still have fun, but take away a lot of the bad actors involved in the game.
Yeah, definitely. I think, it's really unfortunate that we keep seeing these scandals happen, but it's really significant with, the latest one with these two pitchers. You had pretty much a direct response from Major League Baseball and sports books, not just saying we condemn this, we're working to, crack down on this kind of stuff, and this is the legal industry working the way it's supposed to. They actually changed the rules here, like you're saying, Craig. They now have a $200 limit on these micro bet pitch markets where you can bet on what pitch a pitcher is going to throw, whether it's going to be a ball, a strike, whether in these cases too, you could bet on how fast the pitcher was throwing, stuff that was very easily manipulatable by, a single pitcher can just, in these cases threw one in the dirt to start an inning. And it was actually, some of the sports betting technology and integrity stuff we have that tracked, hey, this was the craziest arm angle Class A has ever thrown this season. So it's one of the reasons we were able to find this stuff. But I think it is really significant that now you're having these new betting rules in place as a direct response from these, these scandals, whatever you want to call them, coming to light. Now, we obviously don't know how many times something like this has happened previously before we had legalized sports betting widely adopted in the U.S. Offshore sports books haven't been able to offer as sophisticated markets as these. So, maybe there's a little difference there. But I think now the question is, what else do we look at when you talk about the easiest way to curtail this kind of stuff? Last year when Jonte Porter, who was on a two-way contract in the NBA, when it was found that he was part of this scandal, sportsbooks stopped offering player props on two-way contract players. That was their response. And, we have another response here, which goes obviously further with, limiting the amount you can bet. So I'm really interested to see what happens next, whether it's another sport like the NBA, which is dealing with its own, scandal, so to speak, and its own headlines with the FBI, and what else comes, because this is the same FBI team that also brought the NBA scandals to light. So I'd have to imagine they're working on some other stuff as well right now, and the timing is definitely not a coincidence, but definitely some very significant news in the gambling world that now you're not going to be able to bet more than $200 on a specific pitch market.
Yeah, or parlay them, which makes a lot of sense. And now we can at least move on from that and move on to prediction markets. Of course, what would a show be without talking about this? California, no time soon will they legalize sports betting, but it appears that prediction markets, at least for the time being, in California, Sam, are here to stay.
Yeah, Kalshi and Robinhood scored a major win for sports prediction markets in California this past week. A federal judge ruled that these markets they're offering are actually less like sports betting and more like financial derivatives, which, as we know, are regulated by the CFTC at a federal level, not a state level. California does not have sports betting legal. So in the meantime, people have been using these prediction markets to essentially place bets on sports. These things look very similar to sports books, and the reason the tribes sued to stop them is because tribes have exclusive rights over gaming in the state. That's Class 3 gaming, casino gaming, and have basically prevented sports betting from being legal. So this is a major win for Kalshi, essentially allowed to just keep operating in the state. We know California is really significant. There's a couple other states where they're facing lawsuits, but California, again, the largest market in the country without sports betting. So there's a huge gap and huge lost opportunity for these sports books right now. Now, recently you've had DraftKings and FanDuel saying they want to offer sports prediction markets in those states. So this could be very significant in allowing that to happen as well when you talk about the pushback that they've gotten there. But huge win for Kalshi, and it could impact the lawsuits going on in other states right now as well. There's like almost half a dozen other states which have challenged this in some way. Ultimately, this could all end up at the Supreme Court, but in the meantime, it's a big win for Kalshi.
Meanwhile, Penn Entertainment certainly taking a different view on sports and sports betting with all of the opportunities that they've had to make a deep imprint in the sports betting market. Seems like they've gone the other way, but their CEO seems to be undeterred here, Sam. So what does the future hold for Penn? Do you think they jump back into the sports betting game, or do they have some other opportunities that they could potentially help some of their investors out?
Yeah, right now it seems like Penn is very much committed to just moving their failed sports betting ventures off of Barstool, off of ESPN Bet, onto The Score, which is another company they actually spent billions of dollars on over the past couple of years, but one that's actually helped it improve its technology, which had been a struggle for the company for a while. You had just this week CEO Jay Snowden, who has been pretty much lambasted by critics in the media as someone who has been responsible for all these failures in sports betting. He bought around $500,000 worth of his company's own stock after the news it was getting rid of ESPN and after the news that Penn would miss on earnings, which bumped up the stock price. It's always seen as a positive in the investment community when, someone inside the company spends, $500,000 on the stock. So largely probably did that to pump up the price at a time when, everyone is criticizing them for losing ESPN Bet. That was a deal that they spent almost $500 million on and got less than 3% market share in sports betting. They kind of sold everyone as that is our big move after the Barstool debacle, which again cost them about another $500 million. And meanwhile, there's a bunch of investors who are trying to get Snowden removed from the board in a proxy fight. So there's a lot of kind of political behind the scenes financial battles going on within Penn right now, underneath the entire mess of ESPN Bet and Barstool. That's already a mess in and of itself. But beyond that, when you talk about the financials of the company and, the dynamics between different investors and shareholders, it's very, very messy. And I wouldn't be surprised if at this time next year, we're talking about an entirely different path for Penn yet again, one that is hopefully not paying a company $500 million just to use their name, and one that is, focusing more on its core casino business, which is kind of going under the radar. Their casinos are doing really well right now, but when the headlines are $1 billion on a sports betting failure, it kind of overshadows that.
Yeah, it definitely does. And, Penn has had their missteps in the past, but, again, you're right. When the CEO reinvests, it seems like that's a really good sign for the company. Okay, so the big story, Sam, that we're going to have here in a couple of weeks is, of course, surrounding the state of Missouri. I know a lot of people are focused on Thanksgiving and holiday time, but for those folks who are unaware and haven't watched our show before, Sports betting is only going to be legalized in one state this year. It's going to end up being the state of Missouri. And Sam, they go online on December 1st. This is coming very quickly here in a few weeks. I know that they have handed out some licenses to some teams as well. But there's been no hiccups, and it appears all systems go. We'll find out, I guess, who makes the first bet, right? Like, I'm not saying Ozzie Smith is going to do it, but we're going to find like some super athlete in the history of Missouri, and maybe Patrick Mahomes, I don't know, to make a bet. And I think that's what's coming next for us here. That'll be what we cover in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, as long as it's not on the NFL for Mahomes, but you've done these launches long enough to know that the sports books always pick a big profile, high profile figure. And one of the reasons we're talking about it going so smoothly is, again, because it's taken so long for Missouri to finally legalize sports betting. In years past, when we're talking about Maryland, it took them almost 3 years to get it done once they legalized it. And there are all these hiccups in other states. But because I think Missouri waited so long, they benefit from knowing actually how to do it. And everything seems to be all ducks in a row. Every sports book you want to bet on, you should be able to December 1st. And it'll be big for the industry, which hasn't had a legal state launch in almost 2 years now.
Sam, great catching up. Thanks for coming on NewsWire. We'll see you again on Friday. Thanks again.
Absolutely. Thanks, Craig.
All right, Sam McQuillan from Legal Sports Report. A couple of big pieces of news in the National Football League. Giants, by the way, have just made it official. Jackson Dart going to miss this week's game with a concussion. Mike Kafka is going to be the interim coach this week, and they're turning to Jameis Winston at quarterback and not Russell Wilson. So the Winston experience begins this week. We'll be back with Simon Applebaum next.
Detroit's going to be a top 6 team in the East. And they're going to be extremely dangerous. And it may be fun to watching that Central Division between Detroit and Cleveland. Kind of makes you think back to the old early 2000s with LeBron and obviously the Chauncey Billups-led Detroit team. But Detroit basketball's back.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
His daughter, she's on the OF.
Okay.
She's on the OF.
Is that right?
Yeah, she's on the OF.
So he's got
now.
an OnlyFans daughter and a little son
who says he can beat Curry and LeBron.
And he's coaching a team that was down 72 to
Keep
nothing.
that dude away from polite society.
Okay, brother, I'm with you. I didn't know any of that is.
Numerous pops gotta go.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
I can just cash out and say, see you later, bye-bye, and sell that contract. So there is a big difference. I've already said I will never, ever, ever again make a future bet with a sports book where the money gets tied up and I have to wait till the outcome of the event. Don't have to do that. All future bets for me are going to Kalshi.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
And the amazing thing you're going to say about Tom Izzo for the jump is, Tom Izzo don't duck anybody. You want to hear who they have to play preseason? Kentucky, Duke, UNC, and Arkansas. This is not the Jimmy Boeheim Don't Leave New York Carrier Dome Classic. This guy plays people.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Always great to catch up with Simon Applebaum from the podcast Tomorrow Will Be Televised. Simon is a weekly guest of ours, weighing in on sports streaming and television ratings, and as it pertains to sports betting, we dive into those topics as well. Simon, great to have you back here on NewsWire, and we're about 10 days out from what was a very thrilling World Series going all the way down to Game 7. One team from Canada, one team from the States, and, didn't know who was going to win even going to the end. And that definitely speaks to the ratings of the World Series, Simon, and definitely a great month and a half for baseball with the postseason.
Absolutely, Craig. Great to be back with you. 16 million average was for Fox and for Fox Sports System combined. That's the best performance that the World Series has had on Fox in 8 years. It was up something like 18% from last year. And you called it right in the head. A USA-Canada matchup, incredible games, 2 extra inning games, great performances by both teams, Los Angeles Dodgers and the Toronto Blue Jays. And believe it or not, that was just the icing on the cake for what also turned out to be a great playoff for Major League Baseball. 6.3 million average viewers per game. Again, because of the matchups, you had New York and Los Angeles teams involved, USA, Canada. Great games that went down to the wire in terms of deciding games, both on broadcast and on cable. It was the best bet. And by the way, something people should know, worldwide, 34 million people watch the World Series on average per game, and that's the best result worldwide for the World Series since, look at this, 1992. And up 19% from 2024. So overall, even despite the latest woes, as you mentioned with Sam regarding the Cleveland Guardians, Major League Baseball has a lot to be happy about this postseason. And given the fact that next year you're going to have Sunday Night Baseball now move from ESPN to NBC, you're going to have Netflix carry Home Run Derby, and maybe an opening day game, there could be more good news next year for Major League Baseball as far as TV is concerned.
Yeah, I think Giants-Yankees opening night on Netflix before opening day of the Major League Baseball season. Okay, so I guess at this point it's fair to say that both YouTube and Disney are firmly dug in here on this carriage dispute because, Simon, it does not appear that there's any light at the end of the tunnel here. As a matter of fact, I saw the news this week that it looks like YouTube would like to make good on some of this with their subscribers. But if people don't know about how they can make good, they can't make good. It's a very confusing deal here with YouTube. They could just simply, it feels like, do the right thing by people who love the Disney networks, but they're actually making them log in to claim a credit. I'm very surprised, Simon, that this is the way they've gone to go about doing it. It feels like they failed once and they failed again here.
It looks that way. $20, by the way, is the rebate that YouTube TV is talking among their 10 million subscribers. And now it looks like there's 2 issues involved. Usually when it comes down to these carriage deals, it used to happen between cable operators and programmers. It's the case of money, the case of how low as a distributor of programming can I pay these television networks for the right to take their games and run them on cable. In the case of YouTube television versus Disney, and by the way, there's reports now that Disney is losing anywhere between $4.5 and $5 million a day from this situation. And it looks like there's now 2 issues involved. We talked about one of them the last couple of weeks, and that is the carriage of ESPN Unlimited, the new mega content interactive service. Again, YouTube television wants to carry that service for the lowest rights fee possible, and Disney the highest rights fee possible. But the other issue now, which has been brewing over the last 48 hours, is ABC. Remember that ABC over the last couple of years has been taking more and more of ESPN's content and either simulcasting it or running on ABC. The top SEC games on college football on Saturday afternoons, the NBA Finals, Monday Night Football, which now is an ESPN ABC simulcast or on some games on ABC solo. So with all that in mind, YouTube TV is saying to ABC and Disney, if we're going to take ABC, we want it for the lowest right fee possible and not the highest fee. And of course, Disney doesn't want to go for it. And that's why we've got the snafu that looks like it's going to run a while longer, maybe a lot while longer.
Yeah, it would be wild if the college football playoffs did not appear on YouTube TV, and we're a month away from that. So here we go. All right, FanDuel Sports Network, certainly under the umbrella, of course, of another company, is definitely pushing things forward, Simon. There's no question they've tried with this new whip around show that's broadcasting every single day, I believe 5:30 p.m. Eastern, checking in on all the different NBA games and hockey games as well. And Main Street Sports has also decided to push FanDuel into the podcasting game, video podcast. Simon, tell us more about that.
Absolutely. And by the way, the show you're referring to is Countdown Live. That's involving the former ESPN SportsCenter late-night anchor Stan Verrett, where, again, it previews the games. And, again, this is a show that is national, and it's on all 15 of the FanDuel sports networks. And there's really 2 stories here. One is that FanDuel has realized, hey, if we're going to have these regional networks work, they've got to be cohesive when they're not running sports event programming. So that's why they're getting into things like Countdown Live. They're getting the Golic and Golic show, which, by the way, we understand is also boosting their ratings. But now Now, starting this weekend, they'll be doing video podcasts. They made a deal with The Ringer, that's Bill Simmons' venture, that already made a deal with Netflix through Spotify. Now they're going to be doing two shows. This Sunday, they're going to be doing their own Sunday NFL Countdown type show. It's a video podcast from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Then, starting the following Monday, they're going to be launching an hour-long gambling show that will run from 2:30 to 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and they will be using FanDuel's odds in the show. So, you got FanDuel trying to do more on the national level with their regional sports networks to keep them going and going great when they're not doing live sports events. And secondly, you have this idea of video podcast becoming more and more a TV factor.
Let's end, Simon, with the life and legacy of Paul Tagliabue as commissioner of the NFL for 17 years. It does feel like Roger Goodell, the current commissioner, has taken the NFL to levels beyond anybody that could have possibly imagined, but his predecessor certainly had it going in the right direction with Tagliabue.
Absolutely. Very humble, but behind the scenes, he was a giant in terms of expanding the NFL, expanding the NFL TV coverage. Whenever you saw him on television, he always had this sort of everyman kind of feel, this kind of humble look. But behind the scenes, he was as much a giant in the NFL as the former commissioner before him, Pete Rozelle, and the one after, currently, Roger Goodell. One of the greats.
All right. Simon, thanks again for appearing today on NewsWire. We'll catch the podcast tomorrow. We'll be televised, and see you again next week here on NewsWire. Thanks again.
You got it, Greg. Take care. Enjoy the rest of the week.
All right, that's Simon Applebaum. Coming up next, LSU parted ways with Brian Kelly, but are they willing to write the check for him to go away? We'll explore that with our friends from Front Office Sports coming up next. Don't go away.
Notre Dame playing very well, in a position to crack the top 12. Now they have to take care of business.
Here's what I want from my, and again, we're going to go over who we think is actually going to make the playoffs here a little bit later in the show. But understand this, Joe. I don't want any ACC in there. I don't want any Big 12 in there. Just give me the Big 10 and the SEC. And Mike, quite frankly, if you just gave me Ohio State, Indiana, and the rest of the SEC, boom, boom.
Nah.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
It is a sickness in this league. They stink, and they should stink next year. That's it.
But the expectation is to be a 9-8 football team.
So let's shake it. Why is that the expectation? They're garbage. And traded away two of the few good guys they have.
But they're going to get how many draft picks in the first round? 3 next year?
2.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Brissett has been that good. So this is a quarterback that I think is worth acquiring, especially in Superflex leagues. If somebody's already got QBs passed to buy and Brissett's just collecting dust on somebody's bench, go out there, get him, because I think the next 4 weeks, some of the matchups too, he gets Jacksonville, he gets San Francisco, he gets Tampa. Those are going to be some higher scoring games potentially. Good news for fantasy managers who are trying to get Jacoby Brissett.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Today's prop was 15, right? And he's at 44. If you altered him to 20 or 25 plus, those are some big numbers. Like 15 and a half, like Jack Besh this morning was 11 and a half, and his number got bet up to 15 and a half. Tyler Lockett was 16 and a half and bet down to 15 and a half. If you just took a shot, like 15 to 25 is nothing. And next week, his number's not going to be 15.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. We thought it was kind of cut and dry a few weeks ago. LSU loses a game, they fire Brian Kelly, and then we talk about these buyouts in college football that are just so astronomical. Well, Kelly's is $54 million. But what happened was, as time went by, we really didn't hear from LSU. And then we finally got a statement from Brian Kelly, and it appeared as though there was some sort of discrepancy in terms of paying him his $54 million buyout, because they're claiming that he was never fired. So we really don't know exactly what went behind the scenes. Is it possible that Kelly actually walked out on LSU before his contract was out and forfeited his $54 million buyout? Doesn't really seem plausible to me, but that's what LSU is claiming. They fired him for cause, for things that he did. What are those things exactly besides coaching college football? I have no idea, but it's a pretty fun topic to dive into. Our friends at Front Office Sports did just that. Will Brian Kelly get paid $54 million?
Well, just days after former LSU head football coach Brian Kelly informed the school to fulfill its contractual obligation to pay him the full $54 million buyout from his contract, this after he was fired by the school, LSU has now filed their own legal paperwork. They allege that Kelly was removed for cause, and that would avoid them paying out the second largest coaching buyout in college history. So let's bring in Front Office Sports college sports reporter Amanda Kristovich. So Amanda, what happened over the last little while that it escalated to this point?
So I just obtained a copy of the court filing, and according to that, there was a meeting on November 10th, so yesterday, between LSU officials and Brian Kelly's representatives where basically LSU took the position that you just explained, that actually he hadn't been formally fired and he had been fired for cause, which in the parlance of these, coaching contracts means that you're not owed the buyout. Being fired without cause is actually what it means in this parlance, to be fired because you did not do a good job coaching your team, interestingly enough.
Right. Which was, by the way, that's what they claimed originally, why he was fired.
Exactly. And the lawsuit explains in multiple ways how publicly and privately they said this, that they were affirming that he was fired without cause. And then all of a sudden in this meeting yesterday, they said they believed that there were reasons why they might take the position he was fired for cause and that he wouldn't be owed any of the buyout. And the lawsuit was filed hours later.
Interesting also because in the lawsuit, they claim that they had been negotiating a smaller buyout for him, maybe between $20 and $30 million. How much of this has to do with the fact that Kelly rejected those offers and was seeking the full buyout here?
I'm not sure, because the lawsuit did confirm that the court documents confirmed that he was offered $25 million in the day he was fired, and then later that day offered $30 million in a lump sum. And his representatives declined that offer, but they did say that they were open to other negotiations. They didn't say all or nothing. So I find it a bit strange that all of a sudden they went from, we'll offer you $30 million in a lump sum, to nothing, especially when he does have a duty to mitigate an offset clause, which means that whenever he gets a new job, LSU only owes him the difference between what the buyout money is and what his new salary is. So they really wouldn't, it's possible that if they agreed to pay him the full buyout, they wouldn't have to pay up to 25 or 30 million, because he's being paid in incremental monthly installments.
Interesting. How much also, and you've reported extensively on this, is the governor of Louisiana, Jeff Landry, a part of this, given the fact that he has been outspoken in saying that the money was mismanaged in terms of how he doesn't want to spend that kind of money again on a coach or all of that. So how much of it has to do with the governor here?
Really interesting, kind of buried in the court filing was this allegation that the governor's office was going to reach out to Brian Kelly to discuss the terms of his buyout. There was a letter that Kelly's representatives sent to LSU and said, Kelly has told us, his representatives, that someone from the board or the governor's office will reach out to him. But we don't think we need a meeting unless you have another offer for us, etc. Basically. There was another part of that court filing that cited an email sent by Verge Osberry, the current athletic director, who denied that the governor's office had ever told Kelly they'd reach out to him. So that's sort of strange, but it does imply that Governor Landry continues to be involved in these buyout conversations, as he has said he would be.
We have about 40 seconds left. Does this situation deter anybody maybe from wanting to take the LSU job just because sort of the mess that's been coming out of this?
I think it's a major concern for any coach and their agent, but I will say that it just means that these agents are going to author even more ironclad contracts with potentially even bigger buyouts.
Notre Dame playing very well, in a position to crack the top 12. Now they have to take care of business.
Here's what I want from and again, we're going to go over who we think is actually going to make the playoffs here a little bit later in the show. But understand this, Joe. I don't want any ACC in there. I don't want any Big 12 in there. Just give me the Big 10 and the SEC. And Mike, quite frankly, if you just gave me Ohio State, Indiana, and the rest of the SEC, boom, boom.
Nah.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
It is a sickness in this league. They stink, and they should stink next year. That's it.
But the expectation is to be a 9-8 football team.
So let's shake it. Why is that the expectation? They're garbage. And traded away two of the few good guys they have.
But they're going to get how many draft picks in the first round? 3 next year?
2.
Pro Football Today. Only on SportsGrid.
Brissett has been that good. So this is a quarterback that I think is worth acquiring, especially in Superflex leagues. If somebody's already got QBs past the bye and Brissett's just collecting dust on somebody's bench, go out there, get him, because I think the next 4 weeks, some of the matchups too, he gets Jacksonville, he gets San Francisco, he gets Tampa. Those are going to be some higher scoring games potentially. Good news for fantasy managers who are trying to get Jacoby Brissett.
Fantasy Sports Today. Only on SportsGrid.
Today's prop was 15, right? And he's at 44. If you altered him to 20 or 25 plus, those are some big numbers. Like 15.5. Like Jack Besh this morning was 11.5, and his number got bet up to 15.5. Tyler Lockett was 16.5 and bet down to 15.5. If you just took a shot like 15 to 25 is nothing. And next week his number's not going to be 15.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. What a hot button topic this has been, the firing of Nico Harrison, general manager of the Dallas Mavericks. We thought we would bring in Dexter Henry for his opinion and knowledge on that, because Dexter certainly is all over the NBA and follows everything that goes on. And I have some mixed opinions and emotions on this, Dexter, this trade that Nico made that ended up inevitably costing his job. And Luka does look like every bit of the superstar that he was projected to be before he was traded and even after he was traded. But inevitably, this cost Nico Harrison his job. So, I feel a little different today than I did yesterday. I knew you were coming on, so I did some more research and listened to some podcasts and some talking heads and people that talked about this. So I still think Nico Harrison got a raw deal. I don't like the fact that people forget that any trade like this has to run through the ownership and they have to hit that button before it is traded. But I guess the one thing that I didn't really consider is that, Dexter, somebody has to propose this trade. And he's the guy that proposed the trade. And that to me is, something I probably should have thought it through a little bit better, because while I don't think he's completely culpable, it was his idea. So he does have to fall on the sword for it.
So yes, and I remember us talking about this after the trade went down, and you asked me, how could this happen? And last year we reacted to it, last season, and I agree with your logic here, Craig, and how you're thinking about it. I do think it should be repeated, what you just said. Yes, he had to propose the trade. Yes, it was his idea. Yes, he had a vision of the Mavericks being a much bigger defensive team and all that, and obviously them getting off to a bad start hurt him. But I do think it's so important to note what you just said, which is Patrick Dumont had to sign off on this. And fans get upset at Nico Harrison. They had to fire Nico Chance. It was going on and all that stuff. But you should be mad at the ownership. Just because somebody presents an idea doesn't mean that you have to sign off on it. Right. And this was signed off on. And I think there should be a little bit more ire towards the Mavericks ownership. I feel like they've skated by on this unfairly. I'm not saying to have a sympathy party for Nico Harrison here. That's not what I'm saying. You're right. He is culpable in this. And obviously we know coaches, GMs sometimes are going to be the fall guys. But I just think Patrick Dumont and company, they're skating off a little bit too easily on this. And they signed off on this and gave away a generational talent, a guy who I thought when he came into the league was one of the best talents I'd seen come into the league. And we see what he's doing now with the Lakers, looking like an MVP candidate. Some people have him as the front runner for MVP. Look, everybody knew this was a bad trade when it was made. Not just because they traded Luka Doncic, Craig, also it's because of what they got in return, and they didn't get enough picks. They couldn't get Austin Reeves back, who the Lakers still have. They just got Anthony Davis. It just wasn't enough. It was a bad trade, but everybody should have egg on their face. And I think the fans should be asking to fire the ownership, personally.
Yeah. Look, and that's not going to happen. I think that the owner has to be able to trust someone, and that is his GM. And I get that. But when you're about to change the franchise, I don't think there's anything wrong with the owner of the Mavericks leaning on other people in the industry and asking around, like, let me just expand my little circle of trust here to 5 as opposed to 1. And I think that it would have been hard pressed if he would have reached out to some of the historical GMs in the game. Like, who's to say that he couldn't reach out to Greg Popovich? I'll use him as an example. Hey, Pop, what do you think about my GM has proposed this trade, and you're telling me that circle of trust of 3 or 5, it's not big with the owners, we know that. But that circle of trust wouldn't have had any pushback at all. It kind of leads me to believe that he basically just said, this is my GM, and I'm just going to listen to whatever he did, because there's no possible way it could have went down any other way.
Right. And to some degree, when I'm not an owner, you're not an owner, but like you would think if you're running something, you want to listen to the people that you trust on this to some degree, right? That's your point here, Craig. And I do agree with that. And there has to be some level of trust. But look, I don't mean to be blunt about this, but like Stevie Wonder could see that this was a bad trade. Like there's nothing that was good about this at all whatsoever. You don't give up a generational talent. To me, it was, even if you thought Luka had the weight problems and all that other stuff, with the weight problems, he got you to the NBA Finals, and you got rid of him. There was nothing that makes sense about this at all whatsoever. And look, you're right. The owners are not going to fire themselves. That's never going to happen. We know that totally. But Nico Harrison didn't do himself any favors. I think where you can criticize Patrick Dumont and company, even though we know they aren't going to fire themselves, Craig, I think is the fact that why did you do this now? And I understand that the Mavericks are off to a bad start. Kyrie Irving looks to be a ways from coming back. You have Cooper Flag. But now, what's the direction of this team? And this is going to be interesting to see what they do. Are they going to try to trade AD? Are they going to try to trade some pieces like a Daniel Gafford or a PJ Washington? That's going to be interesting. But you knew the fan base wasn't happy with this from the time you traded Luka. From all summer, you knew this. And you allowed Nico Harrison to make more moves for the roster this year and then decide to get rid of him at this point in the season. That's what I didn't understand. Why don't you just get rid of him? You knew it was bad. We knew it was bad from the day the trade went down. Everyone knew it.
Yeah, it was so bad that I thought it was a great trade for the Mavericks because I was missing something. That was my take on it. I was like, I mean, we're going to find out something about Luka that we didn't know after this trade went down. So
we found out he's better than what he thought with the Lakers. Craig.
I know,
That's
as it turns out. Poor Nico Harrison. All right, that's the end of his GM days, unfortunately. Okay, so Oklahoma City is, speaking of what we thought they were, even better. Wow, 11-1 now on the season, as they have a great second half yesterday, and they beat Golden State 126-102. They're 11-1 on the year. Their win total, Dexter, from the beginning of the season is soaring. I believe it was 60.5. It's up to 65.5 now on the season, which means that we could be approaching that magic number of 70, which we just don't see in the NBA all that often. But you're not going to put a win total there. But I got to say, this is not insurmountable at this point. I think they could get there.
Yeah, they're that good. They're that good and they're that deep. The thing you told all the time about Oklahoma City last season, especially before their playoff run, is they don't have the experience. I don't know if they're going to be able to get through 3 rounds to get to the finals, 4 rounds to win it all. Well, they've got the experience now. They know exactly what it takes to win. They've been to the mountaintop and they've achieved everything they've had to achieve. And I think the thing that should be really impressive about their 11-1 start and how they're looking is they're doing all this without J-Dub. Their second best player, their second best playmaker, they're doing this without him, and they're fantastic on defense, fantastic on the offensive side of the ball. There's not really too much doubt in my mind that they can repeat. There's no reason for me to be concerned that they can't repeat. Do I think they'll be tested this year a little bit more in the playoffs? Sure. But this team got tested through the playoffs last year. They were down in playoff series. They fought that adversity and came back. I think they know how to manage the regular season. They have all the depth. And this team looks like a well-oiled machine. Even if Shea doesn't have it, we're seeing improvement from Chet Holmgren last night, going perfect from the field, 23 and 11. This team is just really deep. They're fantastic to watch defensively, and they're going to be tough. That over 65.5, I'm not saying I would take it, but I understand why you might want to make that play.
Right, and they don't sit guys generally, which is what I love about them. They play their guys all season long, so that's cool.
Yep.
Same could be said for Nikola Jokic, who takes pride on playing every game. And I would ask you this, Dexter, with the win they had yesterday, they've won 5 games in a row, and we live as prisoners of the moment all the time. And I understand it's Sacramento, too. I'm not going to lose sight on that. But Dexter, is Denver the second best team in the NBA? I mean, they look like a different team than they were last year. Maybe there was a reason why Mike Malone got fired.
Yeah, well, listen, I think it's a couple things here. I think, look, we know Jokic is amazing. We saw what he did last night, 35, 15, and 7, right? And anytime he's the best player in the world. Anytime you have him on your team, you're going to have a chance. But I think the key for the Nuggets here is that they improved their depth. They got a little bit deeper. They got some good role players back in. Bruce Brown returning, Tim Hardaway Jr. The guy that hasn't got going for them yet, which is scary, and I agree with you, they might be the second best team, is Cam Johnson. When he gets rolling, this team could be even scarier. They're better defensively. Their head coach is playing more guys than Mike Malone did last year. And so I think that's something you have to like a lot about them. But right now, if you don't want to say they're the second best team in the NBA, they're definitely the second best team in the West. But I would have no problem with someone saying they're the second best team in the NBA right now.
Yeah, I saw that picture of Russell Westbrook. How's he doing, by the way? I forgot he's on Sacramento.
He's in
Is he doing any
Sacramento,
good?
Craig. He's in Sacramento. That's all you need to know.
All right. Ja Morant, does he have a new destination coming? We'll weigh in with Dexter on that next.
Notre Dame playing very well, in a position to crack the top 12. Now they have to take care of business.
Here's what I want from my, and again, we're going to go over who we think is actually going to make the playoffs here a little bit later in the show. But understand this, Joe. I don't want any ACC in there. I don't want any Big 12 in there. Just give me the Big 10 and the SEC. And Mike, quite frankly, if you just gave me Ohio State, Indiana, and the rest of the SEC, boom, boom.
Nah.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
It is a sickness in this league. They stink, and they should stink next year. That's it.
But the expectation is to be a 9-8 football team.
So let's shake it. Why is that the expectation? They're garbage. And traded away 2 of the few good guys they have.
But they're going to get how many draft picks in the first round? 3 next year?
2.
Pro Football Today. Only on SportsGrid.
Brissett has been that good. So this is a quarterback that I think is worth acquiring, but especially in Superflex leagues. If somebody's already got QBs passed by and Brissett's just collecting dust on somebody's bench, go out there, get him, because I think the next 4 weeks, some of the matchups too, he gets Jacksonville, he gets San Francisco, he gets Tampa. Those are going to be some higher scoring games potentially. Good news for fantasy managers who are trying to get Jacoby Brissett.
Fantasy Sports Today. Only on SportsGrid.
Today's prop was 15, right? And he's at 44. If you altered him to 20 or 25 plus, those are some big numbers. Like 15 and a half, like Jack Besh this morning was 11 and a half, and his number got bet up to 15 and a half. Tyler Lockett was 16 and a half and bet down to 15 and a half. If you just took a shot, like 15 to 25 is nothing. And next week, his number's not going to be 15.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire. Admittedly, when it comes to machinations in the NBA, there's a lot of names that are out there every year. I know at some point we're going to hear that James Harden wants a trade and Kevin Durant wants a trade, but it's the same names, it feels like, every year. Dexter, is LeBron going to stay in LA? But this is one that really caught me by surprise a few weeks ago. Now, I know that there's been a lot of off-the-court issues with Ja Morant, and I get it. And maybe that is the crux of this, where you have, and you'll correct me here because you know better than me, but it just feels like this organization is stuck by this guy despite all of that stuff happening. And it feels like it's coming to a head here because the organization is just like, man, we cannot get this guy to do what we need him to do. Maybe they're just throwing their hands up at this point. And then you have the Luka trade. So it's like the GM's looking at this like, we can't do what they did here and make this big mistake. Everybody knows that Ja Morant needs to have a different situation. But is there a situation that could get this guy's head on straight and playing the way that he needs to? Or maybe I'm wrong and maybe his head is on straight and it's the organization. But Dexter, so much off the court stuff I've seen with suspensions and all that, and body language, not being in the huddle. I saw that a few times too. What is the end game here for him and the organization?
I personally think he needs to change his scenery, right? For one, I also think Ja Morant, it would be nice if he I don't know everything about his inner circle, but it seems like he needs some better people around him. He had a comment a couple weeks ago when he had got into it with his head coach, apparently, and he was called out and saying that he has to find his joy or love for basketball again. I'm paraquoting him here. And I found that interesting. And then I watched him play last night at Madison Square Garden, and he didn't look like he had much joy. He had 7 turnovers in the first half. Very sloppy with the ball, just doesn't seem to be playing with a lot of passion. I think it speaks volumes that the organization has already offered a contract extension to Jaren Jackson Jr. and not him. His contract runs through 2028. But I think now when you look at it, Craig, is Ja Morant one of the 10 best point guards in basketball? I would say no. But what's his trade value is the other question I think a lot of NBA fans are asking themselves here. And I'm not sure that it is very high or a team that would want him. He's a guy whose game is based on athleticism, does not shoot the ball well from the outside. So he's a limited player in that regard. And he's not playing with a lot of passion. And you have some of the off the court stuff. I don't think Ja Morant is a bad dude at all by any means, but he's gotten himself in some situations that I think we look at it and you say, hey, man, it's time to grow up. You got to figure this out and be a professional.
Yeah, and I've heard some people compare this to Jimmy Butler because of the joy comment, but give me a break. I mean, Jimmy Butler has had 0 off-the-court issues in the past. He's a malcontent, doesn't want to play. I mean, come on. And he's taken his team to the championship and played at a high level in the playoffs. Like, I mean, come on. I don't think there's any comparison there. So within that, we have the Knicks winning yesterday, 133 to 120. And the Knicks seemingly have at least put behind this whole idea that firing Tibbs was a mistake because Mike Brown has led them to a 7-3 start, which is the best since 2012. And they're playing great at home, so that's a good sign there. Now, Brown has had a lot of good experience during the regular season, Dexter, in the past. That's not been the issue with Brown. It's been the postseason. So I would ask you, is this something to take a positive look at here, or is it just a small sample?
Yeah, it's a small sample, but it doesn't mean you can't take a positive look at it as well, too. Like, 2 things can be true there for sure. I think what you have to be encouraged about if you're a Knicks fan is that Mike Brown has come here, at least in the early part, and done what we thought that he could do, which is maximize this offense, which is something the Knicks needed to do. And they're not too shabby defensively. They could be better. To have this up here on the screen right now, they're first in offensive rating. Defensive rating has them in 3rd. So they're really good right now. The net rating is really good. They're blowing teams out. They have not played the greatest competition, but they've been taking care of the teams they need to take care of. You like that? They're not playing with their food. The offense, though, I think is real. It looks really good. They've scored 130 points plus in 3 straight games. First time that has happened in franchise history. Everybody seems to be understanding their role. They're moving, they're cutting. It is not the ISO ball you saw with Tom Thibodeau. The offense is way more diverse, way more modern. Jalen Brunson is more efficient with his catch and shoot threes. And honestly, Mikal Bridges said this last night after the game. He doesn't even think they've hit the best of what they could be. And I would agree with that as well, too. This Knicks offense is real, and they should be one of the best offenses in the NBA throughout this season. And that's something New York fans have not seen in quite some time. And I think if they can get their defense staying within the top 10, they have legit win-it-all championship aspirations here.
All right. So is this game tonight, Magic Knicks tonight? Is this game in the Garden this evening, 7 p.m.?
Yeah.
Okay. So the Knicks are 4-point favorites, 226.5 the total. Magic coming off, of course, a crazy finish with Desmond Bane and a 3-point shot. But it looks like Magic, I guess, are all systems go here tonight because it's a tight line here, Dexter.
Yeah, it's a tight line. Knicks on a back-to-back, which I find very interesting. Mitchell Robinson will be available for the Knicks in this game. He did not play in Tuesday's contest against the Grizzlies. And Mitchell Robinson has made a huge impact for the Knicks thus far, particularly on the offensive glass. I think the Knicks are just rolling right now offensively. I do think the Magic, who've been middle of the pack defensively, but project to be a much better defensive team based on the players they have. I think this is a good test for this Knicks offense against the Magic defense, a team that plays very hard under Jamal Mosley, a team that'll be a little bit rested as the Knicks played in the back-to-back. But I do like the Knicks here in the spot. I like them to cover. I like Mitchell Robinson, who's playing this game. His line for rebounds is only 5.5. I would bang that. He's the best offensive rebounder in the league. So I like the Knicks to win, but I think this could be a good test for their offense against a defense that plays maybe harder than some other teams they've played recently.
Dexter, Luka and the Lakers tonight in Oklahoma City. Hard to fade the Thunder. They're 7-point favorites, best record in the NBA, 229.5 the total here. And Luka's got the highest scoring total in terms of prop in the entire NBA at 31.5 points going into tonight's game. I mean, that is just an insane number, but he has been scoring like that, so not a surprise here.
Yeah, no, not a surprise here. Luka's been on a tear. You can tell, I don't think it's crazy to go with that over 31.5. He's a roll. I still like the Thunder to win even on a back-to-back because I just don't trust the Lakers' perimeter defense to stop the Thunder offensively. So I'm rolling with the Lakers in this one.
Golden State, San Antonio, Jimmy Butler making some comments seemingly to fire up the team a little bit. Spurs 4.5-point favorites, 231.5. I don't think people would have had the Spurs as favorites at this point in the season, even early on, but Wemby is playing so fantastic for San Antonio.
Yeah, Wemby's playing fantastic. Spurs are a really good defensive team. They're top 5 in defensive rating in the NBA. And then the Warriors, they're just struggling on the road right now. 1-5, 1-6. They've got to be better on the road. Spurs have been good at home. We'll see if the Warriors are motivated, but I like the Spurs in this spot.
We got it all in. Dexter, thanks for coming on. See you next week.
Anytime, Craig. Thank you.
All right, we'll be right back.
We have now learned the factual premise that the Lakers can win without LeBron James. So if you're the guy that was staging your own personal holdout, which I believe he was, and it backfires because the Lakers are 7-2, now you've got no choice but to really double down on the sciatica.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
If Jacoby Brissett was playing bad football for the past 3 weeks, Kyler Murray will be fully healthy, ready to go. Can't wait to get him on the field at Seattle and try to resurrect our season. Now you have Jacoby Brissett playing really good football. Putting Kyler Murray back in right now because he wasn't playing good football doesn't make any sense. The perfect storm here for Arizona. Hey, Kyler, going on IR takes the pressure off you. And Jacoby, you deserve the start. Go ahead and start, kid.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Sauce Gardner heading over to the Indianapolis Colts as they go all in on this season and beyond. As I think a lot of people have been noting, that move does not just say, hey, we like what we have this year. It says we like what we have moving forward, and that includes Daniel Jones as their starting quarterback for Dallas. What does that decision to bring in Quinnen Williams say? That means they're poorly ran, but we already knew that.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
And the major thing you're going to say about Tom Izzo for the jump is, Tom Izzo don't duck anybody. You want to hear who they have to play preseason? Kentucky, Duke, UNC, and Arkansas. This is not the Jimmy Boeheim Don't Leave New York Carrier Dome Classic. This guy plays people.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. The New York Giants, of course, named Mike Kafka the interim head coach, which means they need a new offensive coordinator because that was Kafka. So Kafka says that tight ends coach Mike Kelly is going to be taking over an offensive coordinator for the Giants, and they also named Jameis Winston the starting quarterback this week. So a lot of happening with the Giants this week after they fired Brian Dable. Feels like Kafka trying to do some new things. We'll see if that leads him to get this job, not just interim. Meanwhile, the NBA All-Star Game makes a change. Abdullah Ahmed, never heard of him before, but guess what? He's headed back to college, like Rodney Dangerfield. You didn't see that movie. And finally, Joe Madden with some harsh words for a hiring in Major League Baseball. It's time now for some last licks. The All-Star Game in the NBA. Can we just do away with this thing already? I mean, this gets more attention for changes than the actual game or the dunk contest or everything else. They just can't give this up. Like, this is getting to be worse than the Pro Bowl at this point. We gave up on the Pro Bowl a long time ago. All right, so the NBA, everyone applauded the NBA last year. Oh, this is so good. We're bringing back East versus West. It's like the 80s and the 90s all over again. It's going to be great. It stunk. So now the NBA is going back to what they did a couple of years ago again. This time, it is the U.S. versus international competing in a round-robin tournament with 4 12-minute games. Look at this. I mean, what are we doing here in the NBA? Don't you just, like, what was so bad about what they did last year, East versus West? There was so much complaining. Oh, the players don't care that. You can do away with it. You don't have to have. Is it that big of a moneymaker, the NBA All-Star Game and the weekend for the city that it's in? I guess it must be. They're just, I got to tell you, the NBA is just trying to go too far with a lot of this stuff, this NBA Cup and changing of these games and the play-in. I don't know. Look, I am still a fan of the NBA. Don't watch it nearly as much as I used to, but I feel like just way too much tinkering from this league over the last 5 to 10 years. So get ready for round robin tournament, 4 12-minute games, U.S. and international All-Star Game. Hopefully we don't have to do this one again. Okay, speaking of the NBA, this is a better story for us. Abdullah Ahmed, never heard of him. 22 years old, has been cleared by the NCAA and is expected to have years of eligibility left at BYU. Why is this even a story? It's because he's currently in the G League in the NBA. So how did this happen? Well, let's just call it what it is. You can pay college athletes now. So in the history of the league, you've never seen a player go from college to the pros and then back to college again. But in this new day and age of NILs and payments, it makes some sense. So Ahmed, who is a center in the G League, has now recommitted to going to BYU. He's 22 years old. He'll play 2, maybe 3 years back in college. He'll get paid to do so and probably get paid more than he was in the G League. So this opens up a whole new can. But guess what? I don't see any issue with it. If you can make money playing college and make more money than playing in the pros, so be it. Good luck to him at BYU. Meanwhile, Joe Madden, former manager of the Chicago Cubs, who ended up winning the World Series. You see him there with the Angels. That didn't go great. Also was a manager of Tampa Bay, just absolutely blasting the San Francisco Giants for hiring University of Tennessee coach Tony Vitello, basically saying that it's a farce and it's a joke and that you have to have some managing experience at some level in minor or Major League Baseball to obtain a job. I mean, is this sour grapes? Was Madden wanting to get back in the game? I'm not really sure, but the chances of that happening after these comments are extremely slim. Now, to Madden's credit, he was a great manager with the Rays. They won a lot of games, won the World Series with the Cubs, wrote a book about it. Maybe the end of his career didn't go as he wanted it to, but he's still a very well-respected former manager of the game that doesn't seem to be wanting to get back anytime soon from these comments. But who knows? Maybe Tony Vitello will do a great job and prove everybody wrong in San Francisco. All right, that will do it for our show today. Thanks to our great guest, Michael DeCourcy from Sporting News, Sam McQuillan from Legal Sports Report, Simon Applebaum from the podcast tomorrow will be televised, and Dexter Henry covering the NBA for us as well. Don't forget, you can catch all of our great Sports Grid programming all week long and watch it streaming right from your phone. Just take it out and scan this QR code, available for free on iOS and Android. It is the Sports Grid app, and its streaming quality is fantastic. Download now, and if you're going to place bets on anything this weekend, you can track your bets via the app as well. Thanks to our very quiet director, Luke, who doesn't have anything to say to me today. That's okay. Tomorrow's another day. Thanks to our very loud producer, Frank, who's just always in my ear and annoying the bleep out of me. I'm Craig Mish. I'll see you tomorrow for our next edition of NewsWire. Have a great day, everyone.